Hey ho.
Oh, hey. I guess they work.
At least mine works.
Check, 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 check. Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in around 10 minutes, so drink your coffee, smoke your cigarettes, and get here. Da. Check, check, check. We'll be starting in around 10 minutes, so get your seats. We'll be starting in 7 minutes. We'll be starting in 5 minutes. We are starting in 3 minutes. Check, check. We'll be starting soon, so please take your seats. Still some people coming through the doors. Okay. I think you can start now. Yep. So, good morning, everyone. Morning. Woo! Woo! We are, again, very happy to see all of you here for the second day of HackConf 2019. And I hope you had a good night's sleep and you're ready for the content that we're going to have here today. I'm going to make a few announcements and then we're going to start with the program. So, first of all, there was a lost green jacket yesterday, and then the folks from the wardrobe came after the conference and said, there is a green jacket that someone forgot to pick up. So this green jacket is on entrance A4. Ask the security there. They will give you the jacket, just so you know. Second of all, yeah, a big round of applause for the green jacket. Woo! Jacket! 2 days in a row. So we have a mobile app. Again, there's no schedule on the badges. Everything is in the mobile app. It's called Attendify. You search for HackConf 2019 there. We are trying to update the program as we go. And as you can see, we're also trying to be on time, plus minus 10 minutes. So use the app. Everything's there. This is hole number 3. This is track 1. Again, same as yesterday, track 2 will start after the lunch break. Track 2 is, because this was a feedback from yesterday, when I said to my left, people thought it's outside hole number 3 to the left down the corridor. So track number 2 is up those stairs in this lounge. There are hidden doors in the corners of the lounge. This is where track number 2 is. It's going to start after lunch. To my right, up the stairs there, is the Overflow Room. There were some technical issues with our Overflow Room yesterday. They're fixed now, so please use it. And also, just so you know, right behind us, hole number 10, is the quiet room. You can go to the quiet room through the Overflow Room, or if you find the hidden elevator that takes you to floor 8, you can also go there. It's quite nice. You can get a rest. You can get some work done. Go and check the quiet room at some point. What else? I hope you've brought your bottled waters from yesterday, because we have water dispensers, but we don't have bottles. So if you don't have a bottle, just find a bottle from somewhere, and then you can refill your bottle from the water dispensers. This is how we're distributing water today. Very important. And last but not least, on the 5th floor, again, we have our sponsors. They're here today for the second day. Go and check them out. Yesterday was quite full. I think today is going to be the same. So that's from me. Those are the announcements. And now I'll leave you with Ivo, who will announce the first speakers for today. Woo.
So, today we are opening with Tim Driscoll, who is a developer with more than 12 years of experience, and Rosita Kotseva, who is a Python developer at HedgeServe. They are going to show us performance profiling techniques to make our code base awesome. So please welcome Tim and Rossi.
Working? No? Oh, there we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us here. We're very excited to be at HackConf. First, a little bit about us. Oops, not that far. Who are we? My name's Tim Driscoll. I'm an application architect at HedgeServe. I've been programming for about 12 years, 10 of those at HedgeServe, and I love programming. I also love dogs, so that's just a warning to let you know that we will slip in as many dog pictures into this presentation as possible. So enough about me. Here's my colleague, Rosie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosita Kotseva. I'm a software engineer at HedgeServe Bulgaria. I'm also a lecturer at Hack Bulgaria Academy, and I've been a software developer in the West for almost 5 years. And I like elephants, so if you notice something related to them, it's because of me.
All right. So what are we going to talk about? We've been programming for a while, and unfortunately, we've encountered lots of different performance issues, things running slow, and it's required a lot of different tools, a lot of different solutions. Unfortunately, there isn't one silver bullet that can solve all of your problems. So if that's what you were expecting, I apologize. But that said, there is general approaches that you can take to try to diagnose and attack the problem and approach what it is. So that's what we're going to do for you today. So without further ado, prepare for performance profiling techniques to make your code awesome. And Rose?
What we actually want to cover, a couple of things. We have a case study that we're going to investigate. In the next couple of slides, Tim is going to give you detailed information about our example. And while we are going through this case study, I'm going to follow good, let's say, best practices in investigating problems, not just performance ones. However, unfortunately, Tim is going to follow all the anti-patterns.
All right, so let's get started. So first, we'll quickly go through what our case study is. For this, we're going to do something we try to make it a little bit more interesting than your Hello World app, kind of based off of something we do. So we got this risk reporting, RESTful service. The idea here is we want to make it, something like an application we use, but small enough to fit within the slides. So we don't need to know all the details of the financial calculations that are going in there. Essentially, you just need to know that it's taking data from different market providers and doing some magic and sending it into a report for users. So this is how you could see the architecture as a diagram, and so you can see we got some currency API and evaluation API, and then some data access objects, and we're funneling into this position thing that's doing calcs, and then we're exposing that over a report, so that that does RESTful things for you. So, and if you don't like that, you can also view the architecture from the code. Similar idea down here. We're just saying that we've got say maybe like 5 modules. Most of them have to do with data access, so there's some database stuff going on there, some APIs we're calling, and then we got a controller that's kind of handling the details about serializing and deserializing for the exposing the API. So that's our architecture. So what's the deal?
And that sounds pretty cool. This is a powerful application. The users want to use it because basically they want to make millions and billions of dollars. It provides them financial information. However, there's a serious issue with it. It's way too slow. So Tim What are you going to do to fix that?
Well, don't worry, because as you recall from the first slide, I'm an application architect. So I already know what to do. So as you know, in most complicated applications, the database is the bottleneck. You know, there's disk I/O going on there, network I/O. It's very hard to scale out. And so any serious application needs some serious caching.
Mr. Application Architect, sorry, but aren't you skipping a really important step here?
You're right. I am skipping a step. Before you can add a cache, you got to choose which distributed cache that you want to use. So I really like Redis, so we could do that. A lot of people like memcached. So I propose we spend the rest of the 35 minutes going over, the various pros and cons of each. How's that sound?
Hold on a second. Sorry, I have to interrupt you again. Let's
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, let's spend a little bit time talking about the requirements. So each system has different requirements, and we can separate them in functional and non-functional requirements. We already talked about our service, that it has to provide financial data. So we have our functional requirements. However, we haven't talked about the non-functional requirements. And why should we do that? Because the functional requirements tell us what a system's supposed to do. But the non-functional, they put the constraints on how a system is supposed to do so. So there are different kinds of non-functional requirements: availability, security, sustainability, efficiency, many others. However, in our case, our application is way too slow, so we have to take a look at the performance. The two main measurements that we use in performance are called latency and throughput. The first one basically gives you the information how fast the app can respond to a single request. However, the throughput gives you the rate of responding requests. In our case, we want to take a look at the low latency because this is the issue that we have. And nowadays, the developers, are not used to put just an average number of milliseconds per request. We want to use statistical data. We are fancy. So let's do the same thing. Our performance SOA for our case study is 90% of our requests are supposed to be under 100 milliseconds per request, and per second, sorry. And 99% of the requests are supposed to be under 500 milliseconds. Do you agree with me?
You know, after you described all that stuff about non-functional requirements, that did make a lot of sense. So now that I know what the requirements are, I think let's try to fix it. So in order to fix it, let's pull up another picture of our architecture because we like doing that. Here, a little simplified version with a smiley face. And, I'm going to use this to intuit if that's a word, what the problem is. And, looking at this right now, it reminds me of an issue we had early this year with the currency service. It was very slow. It's actually much more complicated than it sounds. And therefore, I know that as an application architecture and using my expert intuition, that the problem is with the currency service.
Okay, Mr. Application Architect, I agree that this is your position. However, I totally disagree relying just on anecdotal data. We need evidences from our current situation. Currently, you're neglecting to gather information based on our current problem and to rely on different data from previous incidents. So take a look at something else.
Oh, you want empirical evidence?
Yes.
All right, well, let me tell you this. I have empirical evidence. One second. Okay. Let's go to the logs. All right. So I'm going to take some logs from when our application was slow, pull them right out of production, real data from the real incident, and we'll do some analysis. So here we go, pulling them up. A little small, but that's okay because we got an arrow, points right to the problem. See there, right after we load the currencies, there's a large gap of time before the report finishes. Therefore, the empirical evidence, as we say, backs my original hypothesis that the issue is with the currency service. There you go.
Sorry, Tim, I have to be a bad person, but you skipped a really important step right now. You're a victim of the availability heuristic. If you haven't heard about it, basically the people decide to make their decisions based on the immediate and easy examples that come to their mind. And this is what Tim did a second ago. Basically, we have a huge amount of relevant data, but he decided to use just a small portion of that. And since we're talking about heuristics that the people follow when they have to make decisions, let's talk about other cognitive biases that are probably applicable to our situation. The first one is called anchoring bias. And it is when a person decides to use his first reference to an information. In our current situation, Tim, yes, he has a lot of experience, and he decided that the issue comes from the currencies. That was his first reference, and that's it. Let's look at the walks from there. Probably he's right. I'm not sure. But we haven't looked at anything else. Another bias is called overconfidence. Yes, he's our expert. We already talked about that. And he's neglecting to look at data that can prove him wrong. He looked directly at the walks of the currency. So another bias that you're actually following. The third one, as you may notice, we have a dog here. It's called confirmation bias. And it's still applicable in our situation. That's because you look for evidences that are proving you're right. You don't look for anything else that can prove you wrong. Again, the logs from the currency data access object. And the last one is called bandwagon. It is when a person makes a decision and everyone else decides to follow him along. In our current situation, if I agree to follow him, the bandwagon effect will become stronger and stronger. And let's keep this one. To be honest, I think that the logs are lying to you. The logs are really powerful information, but they can be useful when we debug our code. And on the other hand, they can be a huge trap when we have to investigate performance issues. That's because we cannot log every single line of code. And at the same time, we could have logged so much useless information that we can't be sure where should we look at. Do you agree with me?
This is frustrating. I'll be honest. I've tried using my application architect intuition, and that didn't work. And then I thought I had some empirical evidence, and that didn't work. And now you're telling me about all these biases that I didn't even know were going on in my head. Honestly, how am I going to ever solve an application performance issue?
Now, here I come, and I can help you. Let's observe our code. How to do that? Well, let's talk about performance profiling. What is profiling? It is a way of gathering detailed information about the frequency and durations of function calls, of space and time, the complexity of specific program. When we use profiling, basically this tool can point us in the right direction. We don't need logs, we don't need anything else to start digging in the current problem. So, Tim, let's do this and use the profiling.
This is exciting because as an application architect, I happen to know lots of different ways to profile various applications. It's actually, most languages and frameworks make it quite easy. We happen to be building a Python application, and in this case, we're using the Flask framework. So with just one line of code, you can add a middleware in there, and it will profile every single HTTP request, give you lots and lots of data about what the issue is. So after all this, it wasn't that hard. So let me go in there and do some profiling. This is our live demo.
Where's my mouse? Okay.
All right. So for this scenario, what we've done is we've run the profiler, and then we've taken it and we've put it into a visualization tool. In this case, it's called SnakeViz. And this is not the only way you can look at profile. There's lots of tools out there. You can use a command line if you like as well. You're not like a GUI person. And it can be useful because if you can see here, there's a lot of text here, but you'll have to use a little bit of trust if you can after everywhere I misled you. But so you can see it logs every single application call. You know, we didn't have to instrument our code or add statements everywhere or do anything that's ugly, just a wrapper on top of it. And you don't have to know where the problem is because it records everything. Fortunately, in this case, I'm the expert, so I know it's with currencies. So I'll just search for currency. And then here we see there's this currency find all method, and it tells me that, oh, okay, actually it's only like 2 milliseconds or something. So I guess that's probably not actually the issue. So that's a little embarrassing in our live demo that I was wrong, but that's okay because the great thing about profilers is you don't have to know what the issue is. It could help you point you in the right direction. Another tool that's useful for that is the graphical view. So here we're looking at it as an icicle view, and in general you see the entire stack trace for everything, and bigger boxes are more time. So if you can look at big boxes and find the biggest box, then you can find where the issue is. So here, using my application architect finding big box skills, I can see that the issues with this getting security data, which has nothing to do with getting the currencies. So that's a little embarrassing. But and then I can go in here and I can actually search for that. And let me try that out. Oops. Type. Okay, so here I got to get security data, and the per call is actually not too crazy, but then you can see that the number of calls are very high. So not only is it telling me, you know, where in the code I could have a problem, but also giving me at least a good idea as to what could be going wrong. Maybe I'm calling this too many times. You know, what's going on there. The tool, you know, doesn't let you just focus on the biggest thing. You can also drill down into, you know, other parts of the stack. And if you don't like I like the icicle. I'm an icicle person, but if you like, you can do like the sunburst. Similar idea, larger radiuses are bigger. But yeah, but enough playing with this. I could play with it all day, but now we know what the problem is. So let's go back into the code and fix it up. All right. Okay. Ooh, I got my pointer too. All right. So I know what the issue is. So we're gonna have to go into. We mentioned it's Python, so you're gonna see some Python here. This is our Python code in here, and normally we don't have comments that tell you exactly where the problem is, but in this case we do. So we have, you can see we're iterating through the securities, and oh my goodness, we're calling another function. It's also iterating through the same list of securities. That certainly sounds like a sort of n squared big O thing going on there. It's a little embarrassing, but that's okay, because we can fix it. So let's do some coding. All right, with that out of the way, got some new code. All right, here we got a little prettier. As you can see, I've changed it to iterate through securities once. I built a dictionary, and I do some constant time lookups. So now we're more at like a sort of a linear complexity of our algorithm. I have to say, overall, I'm pretty impressed with my coding skills. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Application Architect, sorry, I saw that you changed the code, at least the dog did that. However, I totally disagree relying just on this. We talked about profiling. Let's use this again.
All right, that's fair. I feel like you've given me a lot of good advice, so I'll bear with you here. Unfortunately, profiling's so easy that it's just as easy to profile before and after. So profile, and here's the new visualization. As you can see now, we don't have that get security data. Now it's something to do with, I don't know, like the request API, making a request to get valuation security data. Anyway, point is, it's, you look at the top, it's like 10 times faster. So certainly a good start, I would say, and definitely deserving of the GIF that we saw earlier.
Yeah, now I think you deserve the bunny. However, I have to be bad again. Sorry about that. However, when we have problems, we cannot rely just on one single request and profiling just one single request. And what will happen if in 2 weeks from now we have the same issue? How are we going to fix it next time?
Oh,
Yeah, well,
no, I don't know.
yeah, you don't know. So let's think about it before having this issue again. We should be able to monitor our data. And there are a lot of powerful tools. In our real-life application, we use Kibana. It is based on Elasticsearch and give us detailed information. However, in the beginning, when we talked about the non-functional requirements, we defined only our SLAs. We didn't put an actual number for our performance benchmark. And yes, the profiling gave us the information where the issue comes from, how much time it takes, but we need to gather this information. And how we do that? We use Kibana. So
Oh yeah, I can totally help here. Okay, I'm excited. So essentially what we do here is we take our application logs, we do some parsing with Logstash, and they get shipped over to an Elasticsearch database, which is good at doing calculations with large numbers. One of the cool things it can do is it can easily break your data into percentiles. So as Rosie mentioned, the cool thing is to do that because if you just have an average, a lot of times you can miss like high peaks in performance that get averaged out, and you could try to use max, but then one person distorts that. So percentiles are a nice way of kind of taking a balance of the two there. And here you can see over time what that we're actually a little bit above our SLA. So I guess afterwards I'll have a little work to do as far as fixing this. But the neat thing is you can correlate this stuff with the logs, and I can pull up and find out what the stuff is, and then break into my profiler again and fix the different instances. So pretty neat tool to have in your belt.
I can say that it's also a pretty powerful one. However, we need to ensure that our application keeps running this fast. And in order to do that, we need tests. As you already may notice, we don't have existing tests. So it's a huge issue for us. Next time when we have a new system and once we define our performance goals, that's the time when we have to define our performance tests. I'm not just talking about performance tests. We need to define different kinds of tests, load tests, stress tests, and many others. However, we need a way not just to monitor this, we need a way to gather this information and go through it every day, just to make sure that the new changes don't affect our performance. How to do that? There's another tool called APM. And what is APM? It stands for Application Performance Management System. It's a huge system, basically. There are a lot of them. I'll give you just a brief information about it, not a detailed one, because To be honest, it's a subject of a whole other presentation. APM gives you detailed information about a trace back to a specific line of code. It gives you the performance per single request, per multiple requests, not just web requests, the database transactions. It gives you all the application dependencies. It can give you a centralized application data and a lot of other things. For me, the most powerful thing is that it's a tool that can be customized. The development team can decide what can be added, what can be excluded, etc. And since we're talking about APM, the most popular ones are on the slide. At least these are the systems that I know, and I've used a couple of them. These are the links to the APM systems. After our presentation, you can open them, double check what are their pros and cons. For me, the biggest difference is the language. On one hand, Lupe is an APM that supports only .NET and Java. On the other hand, Stackify Retrace supports Python, Ruby, .NET, Node.js, and many others. So it really depends which language you want to use. And the other thing, at least for me, is the pricing. They have totally different pricing structures, so you have to decide which one you want to use. So at the end of our presentation, I'd like to summarize what we did. The first thing is that we really suck at writing code. Sorry to tell that, Tim. No, let's be serious. We were able to talk about the functional and non-functional requirements of an application. When should we discuss these? How important are they? And based on them, we need to investigate our problems, because we can just spend time digging in different files, walks, etc. And we need to have a starting point to do that. Then we talked about different heuristics and biases that the developers, and not just the developers, all the people follow when they have to make a decision. In our case, a design decision. Where should we look at and how to approach our problem? However, it's pretty hard to understand when you're following these biases. In our case, we want to show that Tim followed them, and in our day-to-day work, we are used to pair together, and I was the developer that it came to my mind, hey, you're following stuff that we're not supposed to do. So that's why we used profiling, in order to overcome those biases and heuristics. At the end, we talked a little bit about tests, when we have to write them and why they are important. We talked about APM. There are a lot of different tools and systems that you can use to fix your performance issues. Just be self-aware what you need and where the problem comes from. And at the end, we were actually able to fix our performance issue. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Cool. So I promised there'd be as many dog pictures as possible, so this is my last chance to try to get this one in here. That's my dog, Junie. But in seriousness, thank you very much for having us. Thank you. We had a fun time.
Check. That was really, really helpful. So we have around 10 minutes for questions. Anyone willing to ask a question? Come on, don't be shy. Okay.
I thought you were going to throw it.
Hello.
Hi.
So are you decorating your code in any way in order to run the profiler? Or it's just you feed your app and it profiles it? I don't know. Are you decorating your functions in a certain way so that the profiler can actually work? Or are you just feeding the app to the profiler?
Oh, let me see if I can rephrase the question. Do you have to write your functions in a way that make
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question. We technically, for most profilers, no. You don't have to. There's nothing within your code. It's all at a level higher. Python uses it kind of hacks into the debugger, so just in the way you don't have to change your code to debug. you don't have to change your code to run a profiler. That said, if you have giant 100-line methods and it tells you that method's slow, that could be a little bit of a challenge. But there's probably more than one reason not to actually have methods that big. But yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, thank you. And if I can ask a second question, is that okay? Yeah, so you introduced an application management system in one of the last slides. Yeah, so how's that different from, the monitoring service that most cloud providers basically provide? If you kind of put your app in the cloud, you get those monitoring services out of the box. Do you use those management systems only for on-premise applications, or?
Not a lot of differences between those two. Basically, APM stands for, it's an abbreviation for these kind of systems. You can combine different tools and functionalities from a couple of systems at the end. You can say that this is an APM. However, in our real-life application, Kibana is not called APM, it's just a monitoring system. And we actually have the functionality to upgrade it to an APM and add a couple of customizations. So it's up to you to define if you're using just a monitoring system and if you just want to combine the walks in a centralized place.
Okay, thank you.
Let's get some more questions. Anyone? Come on. Don't be shy.
We're friendly.
No questions? Okay, so one more time. Thank you, Tim and Rossi. That was awesome.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
We're having a short 10-minute break and be right back here after that.
Тест. Едно. 100 патки тръгна да пресичат пътя. Окей. Да. Ама защо се... Добре, но защо фреквенцията изобщо тук намали? Много странно. Да му дигнем...
Окей, добре, разбира се, го ирада. Павел, значи ти си съдията. Ще те обявим като човек, който преценява просто за да...
Тест 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 100 патки тръгнали да пресичат пътя. Розовите ги изцапах вчера, иначе ще съм с тях. Що патки тръгнали да пресичат пътя? Първо пресяква първата патка, после пресяква втората патка.
Двама човека са горе на сцената, аз ще обикачам. Ще имаме двама човека на сцената с хедсет.
Аз ще го мютна сам.
Да знаете, пуснете ме винаги. Окей, супер.
Проба. Проба 1, 2, 3. Проба 1, 2, 3. Окей, мерси много.
check. Oh, all right, so we'll be starting real soon, like 2 to 3 minutes, so you can start taking your seats. We're starting soon, so please take your seats. This is going to be interesting. You want to be here. All right, we'll be starting in a minute, so please take your seats. Okay? Take your seats, people. No need to rush. All right. Our next session is going to be a bit different. It's not going to be a lecture, it's not going to be a talk, but rather it's going to be an AMA. Who here knows what an AMA is? Please raise your hand. This is quite a popular format. It means ask me everything.
Anything. Anything. Ask me
Ask
anything.
me anything.
Sorry.
Yes. AMA. That's right. Ask me anything. And we have panel speakers, guests who are going to answer anything.
We try. We will try.
I will explain the rules in a second, but first let me introduce you our panel speakers. I think all of you know them, but I have to do it anyway. So, first let me introduce you Ivan Vankov Gataka. Big round of applause for him. And also Marian Marinov Hackman. They will say a few words about them when we start. But first, we have chairs, as you can see, because it's a more informal way of answering questions instead of standing straight. And those chairs are provided by ChairPro, for which we are very grateful to them. So big round of applause for ChairPro. Okay, you will be asking the questions. We will start with our own first question to kick things off, but you will be asking the questions, so better think of something smart right now. And Pavli over here, Pavli, can you please stand up? He will be listening to the questions, and whenever he decides, he will give a book from O'Reilly to someone from the audience who asked a good question. This is entirely up to Pavli, so no bias from us, it's just bias from Pavli. And how we are going to do this. Ivo, over here, please raise your hand, Ivo. As you can see him, yeah? Ivo will ask the first question. If you want to ask a question, you have to put some effort in. You have to stand up and you have to walk to Ivo to ask the question from there. So I guess we will form a queue. We will be taking questions, they will be answering, discussing, and whenever they decide the topic's ended, everything's answered, we will continue to the next question. In case we have like 20 minutes for a question, then I will cut in and we'll proceed to the next question. Everything clear? If you want to ask a question, go to Ivo. And we will start with questions from Ivo. Ivo, take it. Take it from here.
Okay. So my first question is, I know both of you guys, you're spending a lot of your free time researching some new technologies, playing some software or hardware stuff. And I want to ask you which of your side projects were most beneficial for your day-to-day job.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. There is a crazy echo.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, you spent a lot of your free time on some side projects, some new technologies that you're playing with, both software and hardware, right? And I want to ask you which of your side projects was more beneficial for your day-to-day job.
Okay. So, because I asked that question, I'm answering it. So, when I was in high school, I had connections to both of our ISPs in Dobrich. And I wanted to connect both of the ISPs. And at that point, you have to understand we were paying by the kilobyte. So your internet plan was maybe 100 or 200 megabytes for all the internet you can download. So the free connectivity was only within the network of the ISP. And what I did was I created an FTP server where everyone could upload their files and share them with other people in the ISP. But since I had connections with both ISPs, now they could share files between people inside the city without actually paying for this. This required me to understand what FTP was, how Linux security model worked, how to shape accounts, a lot of things. And it gave me the possibility to learn about almost anything I needed to know at that point for internet. So this is how I started as a system administrator. This allowed me to gain all that knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. And for me, probably the thing that helps me most is I always looking for mistakes in other people's code and architecture. And I openly say that there is a mistake, that there is a better way. Of course, this makes people not so happy. But in general, in many cases, I receive good arguments why they choose this implementation, this architecture for things that I'm misunderstood. So in general, when you do that in many different projects, you start to see the pattern, how a good software architecture, how a good code is structured. And during the years I'm doing that, actually I think that I become a better software architect. So always look other people's code and always confront their decisions. They make look really good, make sense to you, but just ask the question, can it be done better? And how? If you are able to make it better, it's perfect. If you cannot make it better, then this is the best way. And actually in the both case, you gain a valuable experience that you can implement in your code. So I think that's my thing.
Okay, great. I guess I don't receive a book. So next question, we have a question here.
Hi. So my question is more, I think, towards Ivan, but if you know about this. So basically, I don't know much about blockchain out of cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. So my question is this technology already has some other applications other than the cryptocurrency world? I've heard that the banks have been doing something between themselves, mm-hmm. and actually might be almost as useful as the cryptocurrency. So my question is, if you can tell us some good ways that the technology has been used, or maybe in the future something that is not known by everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, the cryptocurrency are just specific implementation of the blockchain, and actually the hype for blockchain came from cryptocurrencies, but the blockchain is much more fundamental way, for much more fundamental philosophy and way how you structure your code and your data. So the first thing that you have to understand is that the blockchain is not general purpose technology. It's really good for a specific set of problems. And when you apply it for this specific set of problems, it's perfect. But for everything else, it's nightmare. You cannot, I mean, it slows you down, it makes your product really worse. Good examples are financial institutions, supply chains, data provenance, document flow. In general, the blockchain is good when you have more than one entity, I mean, let's say different organization in different countries that have a common process that exchange some digital information between them. That's, if you are in that situation, probably blockchain will help you. If you're a single entity and you will use a blockchain, please use use a simple database. Just don't do it. I mean, it's like, okay, it's not designed for that thing. So right now, blockchain is used really, really heavily in big financial institutions. And I can say because my team is responsible for something like 73% of the world Hyperledger Fabric projects that are in production right now. So I have a deep understanding where it's working and what is the adoption of this thing. It's designed for enterprise, for supply chain, for multiple organization. If you're a startup that is doing a centralized project in some way, blockchain is not for you. Don't use it. Is that answering your question?
Yes, and the follow-up was, so outside of that, is there anything that is coming up, maybe as a usage, or no, mostly about communication?
No, blockchain will not will not make a revolution for a banking system, people rights and stuff like that. It just will not happen because it's not the technology that is meant to do that change.
Okay, thank you.
The other way blockchain helps also is prove that something happened.
Yeah.
That is very important for many businesses, and prove that something happened or didn't happen is very important. So blockchain solves also this problem.
Yeah, data provenance.
Right. And we have our first book, so applause.
Woo! Okay. Okay.
It's not that scary. More questions. Come on. You have
Give
to
me
come
some
here.
hard one, please.
Come here. Don't
You
raise
need
your
to
hand.
come here in order to ask your question.
Yeah. Over here to Ivailo.
I started to notice some technologies like interplanetary file systems, Scuttlebutt, and I see that they've been around for a few years. I wondered if you've looked at them and if you see sort of broader applications that they might be good for, or if really they're not never going to click.
So,
IPFS?
sorry?
You were talking about IPFS?
Yes.
Okay. I actually use that, and I'll explain how. So we have to update a lot of software across all of our data centers across the world. The problem is that usually the pipe between one data center and another data center is not as big as the pipe inside the data center. So having a file that is distributed across your data centers and downloading it from each data center inside is a lot faster than actually copying one file from one server to a few servers in the data centers, and then from those servers to everyone else. Usually when you're upgrading software, you have things like repositories, which you have to update. And you have copies of these repositories across your data centers. And all of your servers in the data centers are configured to download the files from within the data center. What happens is that first you need to upload to all of these servers, and then all of the servers inside the data center, which may be thousands of servers, have to download this one particular file from this one server. And even 10 gigabits is usually not enough for this. So if you have the IPFS, what's happening is that the first server that already copied the file now is serving also that file. And everyone in the data center already knows this. So the initial push of the file is, again, slower. By 10 gigabits, I mean slower. And then after that, it's as fast as the number of machines you have in the data center, which is very nice. The only problem is that IPFS actually doesn't delete files. So once you upload a file, you have to think of a way to remove that file from the local caches of all of these servers. So we had to actually introduce a cleaner process after that for the local caches of all of these files, because there is no way of deleting the file. You can delete the hash, but you are not actually deleting the file from everyone's computers. It's like you're downloading a BitTorrent, you have a few bits of the file on your machine, and somebody removes the BitTorrent file, you still have those bits there, so you cannot delete that. Yeah. It's very nice for distributed, but highly distributed, I mean globally distributed files. Anything that's local, you have better solutions for this.
Yeah, thank you.
And also you have to, it's really nice when you keep it isolated. I mean, if you put it in your private network, not publicly accessible, because you cannot delete files. And also, if these things start growing and people start using it like, let's say, BitTorrent, Kazam, and stuff like that before years, some regulatories will start to find ways to ban it. So this thing is, again, a really specific technology that serves really well on a specific scenario. For a mass adoption, public adoption, it will not happen. If these things start to happen, there will be a lot of forces, a lot of financial forces that will prevent that. As same story as the torrents before years. It will happen because you can share anything.
In terms of security, if you value your files, you have to make your installation private. Don't use the search servers, the public search servers. They tell you that they wouldn't share data and stuff like this, but we know. That's not the case.
How do you feel about its use as some kind of pub-sub mechanism or the hashing to find peers? Is that are
How
there
do you
better
feel
solutions?
about what?
Pub-sub, so to build an app where people can subscribe to each other in a completely peer-to-peer way, because normally that's handled then through some central system. Do you feel is that an appropriate use of the technology, or that's just not?
You're recreating torrent protocol using that. By doing that, you recreate the torrent protocol. And actually, you will not have the benefits of the speed and the distribution and file deletion and anonymity, because anonymity is also a big issue in IPFS. It's pseudo-anonymous. They can track you. So depending what you're doing, if you start doing some semi-illegal stuff, they can find you, and you'll suffer.
And it's slow, so.
And it's slow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's slower than torrent. Yep, that's the other problem.
Okay, that was a great series of questions. Let's keep the questions to up to one per person, please. It's okay. So let's get to the next one.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Yanislav, and I wanted to ask you regarding your last talk in DevBG. You said something about Bulgaria being outsourcing company, which is no secret for anyone, I guess. And I was working in a product company, but I've never worked in an outsourcing company. So I was wondering, is there any difference from a developer perspective, working for, I mean, in a tech skill set or soft skill set and anything? I mean, is there a difference between the two? And okay, maybe only one question.
So the question is there a difference between working on a product company or outsourcing and outstaffing?
Not actually working, but more like
the requirements, skill set and stuff like that.
For the developer, from a
For
developer.
you. Okay, in general, no. Because it doesn't matter are you outsourcing or you're doing your internal project, the same skills are required on the same level. The only difference is how the project is managed. In general case, in the outsourcing, the deadlines are much shorter. There is a much pressure. In general, most of the times, you're not over full control over the requirements, the priority of these requirements. That's the only difference. The difference is in the management, not in the skills required for the person. In general, the good thing in the product-based company is that they are long-term projects, so you can plan really well. People are feeling much more comfortable. They are not what they are doing. They can invest more time in, let's say, premature optimization, in good software architecture, and stuff like that. In outsourcing, in general, the projects are much faster, and you don't spend so much time, and people are a little bit more pressure. At least that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
For me, I think that the main difference is how you approach changes. Because in a product company, usually you're a developer, you have a product manager that actually handles this for you. In an outsourcing company, depending if the whole product is outsourced to this company or only part of it, you have to either talk to the project manager as with the product company, or you have to actually approach the client and try to clear out what changes you want and how they can be done, how this will improve their product, which is generally not your job when you're developing the software. It's somebody else's job. But if you want to push your changes, now you need to change your skill set in terms of soft skills, just to convince somebody that you don't have direct connection with, that they have to change something for you.
You have a question?
Yes. My question is about China and Asia and how Bulgaria could benefit from this marketplace.
Oh, I can answer that.
Sorry, I don't know anything there.
No, it's for me because we have a talk a little bit earlier about that. So for people that are not familiar, there is a shift let's say, in the balance in the world. Asia is opening, mostly China is opening its, let's say, markets and stuff like that. Also, Africa is going really well. So what will happen? China will start to invest a lot of money in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe. They will use it as an entry point for Europe in general. This is already happening. The Chinese Investment Bank now has an official office in Bulgaria, the only one in Europe. A lot of software development will happen here, and there are many reasons why this is not done in China. They have the technology, they have the people, but later on you can ask me about the details. It's a little bit complicated, but they will do the development in Bulgaria, in European Union for that. And the second thing that will happen is, let's say Africa. I mean, you're asking about Asia in general, but I combine them because it's the same process. So places like Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa and many more, they are actually start to build a really good education, economics, infrastructure, and stuff like that. Most of the of the big optic cables are entering in Kenya, for example. They have a huge data centers that, I mean, there is no similar thing in Europe. So what will happen? These people right now are starting to learn this technology. They're cheap labor, and actually they're quite good at it. So after a couple of years, they will be cheaper and better than us. Probably not better, but they will be cheaper and will provide a competitive quality of the software development. So this is a huge thing. And Bulgarian outsourcing industry must prepare for that. I have a talk about that in another conference that began. It's a really complicated process, but there is a way how we can handle that if we play our cards. So, in general, the main driving force, technological and financial force in the next years will shift from Western Europe and USA will shift to Asia, mostly China, but also some other countries. Also, after 5 or 10 years, the region around Caspian Sea also will have a dramatic growth. Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and this country in that region will have a dramatic growth, and also they will have will become really concurrent in technology term to Bulgaria and Ukraine and other countries. So our IT sector must prepare for that. And in general, towards the solution is in Bulgaria, we keep the software architecture, the management, and the QAs. The actual work must be outsourced in, let's say, India, Pakistan, and other countries. So we keep let's say it like that, the success of one project is not the quality of the code, it's the quality of the management of the project. That's the truth. If we keep the management here, we can make successful story without be dependent on the actual people that will write the code. So we keep the good people here, I mean the people with skills, and somebody else is doing the job. If, let's say, India became really expensive or something like that, we can change the people that are actually coding. And this type of process is really complicated because you work with remote teams, different culture, people are not motivated, they are not in your interest and stuff like that, but there is a way how you can manage that. And we a couple of companies in Bulgaria actually experiment with that in the last 2 years, and I think that we find a proper management tool, a process. It's not agile, it's based on agile, but something that is working. So we are too expensive already to be concurrent. Concurrent, is that the correct concurrency?
No.
Sorry, not concurrent, but competitive. Sorry,
yes.
Sorry, my English is not so good. We are too expensive to be competitive with our people, and we are becoming more expensive and more expensive. Yes, we do a good job, but we're expensive. If you want to add something.
No, it's the same. Bulgaria is becoming more and more expensive because our general way of life has improved by the years, but it also made it more expensive. So it's normal.
Yeah, we have a huge middle class in Bulgaria. In every country where a middle class appear, people don't want to work the normal job. They want the easy job for high money. And that's the reason why China is outsourcing most of their production in Africa right now. If you're not familiar with that, China is not the biggest producer of goods in the world. Africa is. But Chinese companies are in Africa, because Africa has something like 50 million middle class or something like that. So, yeah, nobody of them wants to work. Is that answering your question? Thank you.
Okay, I guess Radu wants a book too, so.
Yeah, I'll ask the next question to make it a discussion. So both of you are working in high-pressure leadership positions. A lot of things depend on you. And my question is, how do you manage, do you even get stressed out? And if you get stressed out, how do you manage your stress, your health, those more human things? This is my question.
My secret is that I clone myself every day and I suicide myself at the evening. So that's my secret. No, yeah.
I would say that since we are in the management positions, we are in the position that we can make the decision, should we be stressed or not. So is the deadline long enough? Is it short? Is everyone okay with this that we are doing? And since I told you 2 weeks ago, I started a very stressful project for me. I can decide, should I continue with this or should I stop it? Since I am the manager for this particular project, I can decide this. The developers can't. This is the difference. The developers in my team can influence me by when I'm asking them, can we do this? They can agree or disagree, and I can decide based on major votes what to do now. But the manager is producing the stress. It's if the manager is stressed out, it's because of him. It's not because somebody else has told him. So I would say I manage my stress with chocolate, and that's it. Everything else is based on good decisions or bad decisions.
Yeah, there is a really nice talk yesterday about the lack of leadership. Sorry, I forgot the name. It was on that call. It's I strongly suggest you to watch it later on. It give you a really good answers to this question. But in general, one thing from a psychological point of view, you must have a clear cutting line every day or in a couple of 2 days. For example, I'm stopped working for anything. I mean, I'm for the next, let's say, 30 minutes. I'm out of this world. This is my time. I will do whatever I want. I can sit and stare in the empty room. I can go to a mountain. I can, I don't know, browse 9gag or Facebook. Doesn't matter. Something that is absolutely not related to your work, and it's your time. Please do that. It helps a lot for your psychology.
Great answer. So we have some more questions here.
Hey, you mentioned Agile and good management techniques. There was a lecture before a couple of years ago from Dave Thomas, I think, that the title was Agile is Dead. And he mentioned that the initial idea was changed during the years, or just the message that they want to send to the masses, it wasn't received. And can you say something in that direction? What is I don't know. What is the way of doing agile-like thing in that moment?
Okay, so my wife actually is a Scrum Master, and she really believes. My English is not so good, again. She really believes in that thing, and also she's certified on a really high level. And we have this argument with her, Agile by default, and for me that's the only thing that is wrong with Agile. Agile by default require the people to be proactive, intelligent, responsible, with really good skill set. And these people, when they see a problem, start to propagate this problem up to the chain, so the problem can be fixed. If you have this team with motivated people, if you put them in one room with one glass of beer, they will deliver without any management because they're responsible. The problem is to find this team, to create this team. Every one of you that is managed teams will understand that to create a team, it's years and years and years and years. And Agile depends on these people. If you don't have these people, most of the Agile methodologies just fail. That's the problem. And that's the thing that has to be fixed. You have to adapt a little bit the Agile by the book to take into account that not all the people are motivated, not all of the people are good, not all of the people are proactive, not all of the people are even willing to succeed. So that's the problem. And most of the, let's say, courses and lectures and books for Scrum especially, constantly talking about how to motivate your people, how to see that your people are motivated, but no one is explaining how to do when you fail to motivate your people, or you just have some stupid person that you cannot fire for some bad management reason. I mean, let's say he's keeping some secret that don't want to share, whatever. How to deal with that. And that's the thing that breaks agile process for me. I'm not an expert in Scrum, but I think this is a problem. And that's why, in the context with the previous answer, when we developed this new methodology to use a different outsourcing companies, cheap labor, and keep the management in the queue and the software architecture here, we start with Scrum. We modified the Scrum, we changed a little bit the roles, and actually we have something that is working that is pretty close to Scrum, but it's not by the book.
I would simply add, check out Toyota's Lean model.
Oh yeah.
That's the right approach.
Yeah, Lean is quite good, actually, for small teams. I mean, for big teams, Lean, yeah, maybe.
Big team is already a problem.
Yeah. Okay, is that answering your question? Thank you.
Okay, and we have another question here.
Hello. My question is maybe more towards Marianne, but because I'm not aware if Ivan is involved within the free and open source, let's call it a movement, Linux in the free and open source, that type of sphere. For people that are not aware, for years now, seemingly every year, there's this running joke that next year will be the year of the Linux desktop. And, so, tongue-in-cheek, I want to ask Marianne maybe first, is 2020 going to be the year of the Linux desktop? But really I'm asking...
Here's the person that can
all
answer
right.
that.
In my personal opinion, with a little bit of effort, using a Linux development environment, for example, or anything, system administration as well, a little bit of effort makes you a lot more productive, but people avoid putting in that effort. So will you think, obviously 2020 is the next target year, but do you think it's ever going to happen? And what do we need to do?
Okay, so I'll start with this. I think we already had the year of the Linux desktop when Dell decided to install Ubuntu on their laptops by default. And I would also say that nowadays, if you're not playing the latest games, you're better off running those on Linux instead of Windows. Actually, I played this on Linux because it's very hard to run them on newer Windows. Also, if you have older software that you need to support, it's easier to support it on Linux than on Windows. So if you're not on the cutting edge, Linux is your best choice right now. Sometimes it's even your only choice because you cannot run your applications on Windows. They simply decided, no, we are not supporting that anymore, which is nice for us because Linux is better in most of the ways that supports older infrastructure. So I don't think we would see that everyone would switch to Linux desktop next year or in the next 5 years, simply because Microsoft has its grip in universities and high schools everywhere in the world. So this is not going to change easily. If we don't have teachers that are promoting open source, that are promoting Linux, this is not going to happen. And slowly but steady, this is changing in Canada, in United States. In Europe, not so much, actually. And if you know teachers here in Bulgaria, you definitely know that Bulgarian teachers don't know Linux, and they are scared of it a lot. So no, it's not going to happen now.
And actually, this is a good thing. If you reach, let's say, 60 or 70% market adoption, the Linux will lose a lot of the good things that make it good. People will start to demand a lot of things, a lot of proprietary software modules, firmwares will appear, a lot of viruses using social engineering will start hitting the system, and stuff like that. So it will be something really bad. I really prefer to stay on that level where it is now. It's a good tool for power users. The general public, the masses use Windows, use Mac, be happy. This is power tool for power user.
You also have to know that Brazil actually switched everything to Linux. So they have good experience with that, but they did that with 5 years of preparation. It's not something that they decided, okay, next year we are not going to pay Microsoft like we did.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. So the first one is here.
Oh, it's a big book.
Hi. I wanted to ask you what's your opinion about the remote work and especially about the movement where a lot of big companies migrate their teams from in-house to fully distributed ones. What is your opinion about that?
Remote work? For me, for my team, it means that everyone is allowed to stay at home or wherever they want to work from. I really don't care if the work is done from the office or somewhere remotely. So I like it if the person actually likes it, because there are people that don't like remote office at all. They prefer to stay in the office. And the only problem I see with remote work is meetings, because we are IT people, and even though we are IT people, connecting to a meeting seems like a 5-minute problem every time, every fucking time. So, no matter what software you're using, this is my biggest pain. So when we have meetings, I ask people to come to the office. If I don't have a meeting with the guys, I don't care. Everything else is, if the person is swacking at the office, he will be swacking at his home also, or wherever he's working from. So I don't think there is any problem with this. It's easier to control swackers in the office, but I would say that you shouldn't tolerate swackers at all at the office or remotely.
Yeah, just what from a point of view of, let's say, of the company performance, if you have a lot of people doing remote work, you have to split the work that they are almost independent to limit the need of communication with these people to a minimum, because as he mentioned, the meetings are really difficult. If you have a time zone difference, then it's even more difficult and stuff like that. So you have to split the tasks that when you see, let's say, your Jira item or whatever, this developer can take it from just the description of the task to complete this task and that. So if you're able to do that, no worries with the remote work. Otherwise, if you're not able to do that, you will lose performance. Yeah. Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, and the last question.
Hey guys, my name's Theodore, and I just wanted to ask you, have you ever experienced burnout in your careers, and how did you deal with it?
I'm making that sound because I have 2 really serious burnouts in my life. I'm pretty sure that I will not survive the 3rd one if this happens. It's not funny, seriously. I'm serious as that right now. For people that don't know, I entered in the IT industry quite late, and I have a really big ambition. I was competing with young guys, 18 years old, with a couple of years of experience, stuff like that. So I spent all my efforts to reach some better level. I lose social contacts. I completely mess up my health and psychology and stuff like that. So I burned, and it took me 2.5 years to recover. For some part of this time, I was completely unable to leave my house, just to go outside. I was unable. In some of this period, I was unable to take care for myself. It's devastating. It's something that I'm not wishing that even for my enemies. It's bad. Please don't allow this to happen. Your health and your family are the most important thing. Yes, work is important, work give you food and stuff like that, make you proud, but if you messed up your health or your family or your friends, you lose a lot more. You can find another job, you can recover from a, let's say, mistake or a bad decision in your work. You cannot recover for bad decision for your health. Some of the things that can occur during burnout are irreversible. Don't do that. the first symptoms, the problem with that is there is no major symptom that when start appearing and you say, oh, I'm burning out. No, it's something like you're drowning a little bit by little bit by little bit. You just don't understand that you're burn out, and at one point you're so damaged that your brain actually start shutting down different systems just to prevent you to suicide yourself, because burnout is a really strange form of suicidal activity in general. So if you, to feel tired, it's okay. To feel nervous, it's okay. To feel a little bit depressed at some point in time is okay. If this became permanent and it's continuing weeks and weeks, please go and see a professional. This is well-known phenomenon already. There are psychotherapists that really can help you to manage this. Don't do this to yourself. It's devastating. You will lose a lot.
I would share a different story here.
Okay.
First, when I'm teaching, I'm every time saying that I'm not working because I actually play. My work is my play. And I'm happy with doing what I'm doing right now, and I was happy doing this for more than 20 years. So burnout is, for me, the situation where you get either too much stress or too much work for too little time. So if you're not a manager, where you can control these factors, when you're somebody that only works in the company, the best way to prevent this is simply to talk with your managers, that you cannot do this within the time that's required, that with that stress. If you communicate this clearly and before this actually escalates, you wouldn't burn out. Because if you're stressed or you cannot finish your job, it's the manager's job to actually offload you. It's not your job. You cannot offload yourselves because it's not in your job description to give work to somebody else in the company. But your manager has exactly this description. So if you start with this, talking with your manager, with your colleagues, that this cannot be done within this time frame, this now becomes the problem of the manager, not yours. 6 o'clock, you have to go. You have to go. This is something that I actually try to convince my guys to leave at 6. This is important because you feel stressed because you have more work. The work will be there tomorrow and after that and after that. It won't finish itself. Somebody has to finish it, but if you can't